Hello and welcome to Chakra News. The strategic landscape around India is shifting. To begin with, India's Defence Acquisition Council has just approved several key capital acquisition proposals worth roughly rupees 52,000 crores, and it's a bid to enhance Indian Armed Forces' self-reliance and combat readiness. Then, the Indus Waters Treaty. India's abeyance of this treaty continues to raise alarm in Pakistan. Meanwhile, the alleged track-to dialogue between the two countries has stirred intense debate. And to the west, the Durand Line is on fire yet again as Pakistan and Afghanistan are fighting. To speak to us about all this and more, we've got the editor Chakra News, Sandeep Unnithan. Sandeep, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Deepak. Good to be back after a break. But yeah, big day. A huge lot of DAC proposals were cleared. As you mentioned, 52,000 crore. I was looking at the list. A couple of very interesting projects over there. One is, of course, the Hammer missiles. 500 and almost 400 Hammer missiles for 3,000 crore. The Hammer, as you know, is a French guided bomb. It's a kit that upgrades 250, 500 kg and 1,000 kg bombs, dumb bombs, into smart munitions. So that is a big one. 3,000 crore acquisition of this has been cleared. There's one for a very interesting system called the High Altitude Pseudo Satellite, HAPS.
HAPS.
That's a very big project. It's a 4,000 crore project. This is for the Indian Air Force. And as you know, Deepak, the HAPS is something that skims the stratosphere. In fact, it travels through the stratosphere,
Right.
More than 15 kilometers above the Earth's surface, and it picks up targets on the ground. And
Incidentally, we interviewed the people behind a similar HAPS project sometime last year.
Yes, during the Swavlamban. The HAPS is a very interesting project, and I think they've put in a lot of money over here. It's I was looking at the figures for something like 4,000 crore, which is the development of this project, plus about 19-20 units of HAPS that will be brought. And this actually fills a very vital gap for the Indian Air Force, the gap between high altitude drones and satellites. So this kind of travels through the stratosphere. The idea is that it should be aloft for weeks and months, and you should be able to send up dozens of them, and to have continuous God's eye view kind of surveillance. So HAPS is an important one. There's another interesting one for active protection system for the T-90 tanks. This, I believe, active protection system, of course, as you know, is something to protect battle tanks from incoming missiles, rocket fire, anti-tank guided missiles.
Essentially air defense.
Not air defense, but it's point defense of a tank from all of these threats.
Right.
So this is, I believe it's based on Israel's Trophy active protection system. Very interesting system. It's supposed to be one of the best in the world. What it is basically is a number of radars slapped onto a tank, and it has these active protection systems which use these slugs, explosively formed pellets to the radars, of course, pick up the missile or the projectile that's heading towards the tank, and these explosively formed pellets, they go out and destroy the threat before it comes and hits the tank. It's supposed to be, as I mentioned, one of the best of its kind in the world. And it's very interesting because the T-90 tank, that's our CEO Colonel Awasthi's favorite ride, that was acquired in India about 20 years back, and it had an active protection system called the Shtora,
Right.
Which the Russians had offered, but they did not buy it with that protection system because they said it was too expensive. It increased the price of the tank, so we bought it less, the active protection system. But now, I think in 2026, seeing the kind of threats that tanks face on the battlefield, on the modern battlefield, they're going in for acquiring about 900 of these systems to equip our tanks with. Then, of course, the most important, one of the most important ones, according to me, is the multi-influence ground mine, which is an entirely indigenous system. It's a sea mine.
Okay.
And it's a very advanced system. It's a microprocessor-based mine. It's a smart mine. So it's a 3-meter long cylinder. It's got about 600 kilos of high explosive. And what it does, it lies on the seabed.
Right.
You can program it. You can program it to explode to certain types of warships, meaning you can set up a smart minefield on the bottom of the sea. And this is a entirely indigenously developed, designed system with local partners in Hyderabad. Apollo Microsystems is one of the companies, private sector company. But this is a triumph of DRDO's breakthrough in the mine warfare field, and it's very advanced in the sense that normally sea mines, and we've seen a lot of that debate, discourse around the mining of the Strait of Hormuz. This is one of the most modern mines of its kind in the world.
Right.
And this, as I mentioned, it's microprocessor based. These are smart mines. They use a number of at least 5 sensory inputs before it explodes. So you have the acoustic, pressure, magnetic, and 2 more additional detection systems to trigger off this mine. So it's a total of 5 such sensors that this thing has. ULEF and those kind of things. Very advanced sensory equipping for this mine. It's a big one. 4,000 crore order. I would imagine it's one of the largest orders that India has placed on sea mines. And then, of course, you have the Verba man-pads, which is a surface-to-air missile system which we are acquiring from the Russian Federation. HAPS, of course, I've mentioned, Hammer. Then you have, interestingly, Deepak, jet-based kamikaze systems for the Indian Army. Right? That's a big one, because I'm not sure which company has got it, or if it's still a development project. But very quickly, what a jet-powered kamikaze drone is that your normal drone, your Shahed 136 kind of drones, they're usually slow. They fly at about 100, 200 kilometers an hour. They're very slow moving. They're easy to intercept.
I mean, most fly at something around 80 to 90?
Yeah, about 100, 200 max is the speed that you do. It's a 2-stroke, 4-stroke scooter engine. So that's the reason they make that moped kind of sound, that kind of sound that they make. But these are new ones. These jet-powered drones move very fast. It's a miniature turbojet engine that powers this kamikaze drone. It flies at speeds of between 600 and 900 kilometers an hour. Very difficult to intercept, and they can be on the target in a matter of minutes, whereas Shaheds are very slow. Of course, there is a cost to all of this, but clearly the Indian Army is going the way of jet-based kamikaze drones. There are, of course, other such acquisitions for naval shipborne unmanned aerial systems, land-based testing facilities for electric propulsion system. Interesting. For the Indian Navy, electric drive is the way to go. And you're looking at HAPS, we of course spoke about. MR-SAM is something that we've spoken about as well. Akash Tarang, that's it's a UAV protection system. I would imagine that this is something like a EW system that is meant to protect mobile columns from drones by jamming them. That's a new system that we are talking about here. But overall, it's 52,000 crore worth of projects that have been cleared today.
There were 2 key things that the government stated in its statement. One was combat readiness, and another was self-reliance. So my question here is, when do you see a lot of these, acquisition proposals finally concluding with the induction taking place, the timeline, as it were, and how much of this is made in India?
Well, I would say that this is split down the middle. If you're looking at 52,000 thing, I haven't totaled it. I mean, I don't know what all of them, break. I roughly have an idea. It's something like a 50-50 mix that they're looking at, where you have some very promising indigenous systems of the kind that I mentioned. You're looking at your MIGM, which is entirely indigenous. It's a 4,000 crore acquisition. You have HAPS, which is a development project. V-Shorads is another one, which is a shoulder-fired thing, which is an import. So what the DAC has done this time around, it's like looked at your urgent operational requirements, like the V-Shorad, which is the Russian Verba surface-to-air missile, shoulder-fired surface-to-air missile, man-pads. These are meant for urgent procurement and to fill in the gaps in the air defense networks. And while the DRDO develops its own man-pads, V-Shorads, this is meant as a stopgap. Then you have, of course, the MR-SAM, which is an Indo-Israeli collaboration. That is again something that is made indigenously. And interestingly, the Hammer missile, which is also it's a French missile, but it's being made in India. It's not an Indian origin thing, but a lot of its components, something like 60%, are locally sourced, and therefore that's what they claim. It's BEL, Bharat Electronics Limited, is the agency that assembles these missiles. So overall, I see a mix of indigenous IDDM, I should say IDDM, Indian Design Developed Manufactured weapon systems, and some imports, off-the-shelf imports. But a lot of these imports as well are, not just off-the-shelf, they're assembled locally. So you have a local partner that makes it, and I'm guessing it's Adani Systems is one of them. There's several other local companies that make these systems that they acquire them. BEL is another one, of course. So the idea is to get a lot of expertise into local industry as well.
Create local capacity.
Absolutely.
Sandeep, would it be fair to say that with this, with these proposals being passed, the lessons that India learnt in Op Sindoor and, of course, the other conflicts that have been happening, are the lessons finally being put on ground? And I'm not like, there are already a lot of systems and doctrines and methods are in place.
Yes.
But do you see a larger picture emerging?
Well, if you look at all of these proposals that have been cleared by the DSC today, it's a fair mix of what we've been seeing over the last couple of years, how the battlefield has been evolving, primarily with drones. A lot of focus is on drones. There is, of course, I forgot to mention that part about the naval SUAS, which is basically the naval shipborne unmanned aerial system. That's something that will give ships the ability to launch drones and recover them while out at sea. A lot of focus on unmanned systems, defensive and offensive both. The active protection system like the Trophy, which is whatever variant of the Trophy is sold to us, will be something that is meant to protect tanks from modern threats. And I would imagine this would be one of the newer versions of the Trophy, which is designed to protect the tank from top attack munitions, for instance, right up there, because that's one of the most vulnerable parts of a tank. So it's a fair mix of indigenous, it's a fair mix of off the shelf, but assembled in India, made locally, and IDDM. So it's a combination of all of these meant to address your urgent operational requirements, and of course some very interesting development projects like HAPS. HAPS is a all-out development project. We are trying to increase the range of the HAPS, the staying power, the endurance, the altitude, all of these things. So these are very important development projects, and I'm happy that these have taken off finally. And these have been in the pipeline for several years now, but it's now that they've finally got a green light.
Right. And once they're concluded, I believe they will fundamentally change how the Indian Armed Forces go about operating.
Oh yes, absolutely. I think that these are the kind of capabilities, Deepak, we should have acquired a long time ago. We shouldn't have been waiting for so long. And even now, anything that comes out now it's almost more than a year after Op Sindoor. So a lot of these, to my mind, should have been cleared last year itself, because our procedures are quite cumbersome. They're long. It takes a lot of paperwork, bureaucracy, files, all of that. So we're very process oriented, as I keep saying, rather than outcome oriented. And I think the money that goes into IDDM, of course, that the force multiplier of that is enormous. One example, of course, is the MIGM, for instance, 4,000 crore pumped into the local economy for an indigenous system. We'll see returns of 2x and maybe even 4x.
Right. Speaking about processes, I'll take you one of the older ones, the Indus Waters Treaty. Now, it was hailed as one of the treaties that survived countless wars and terrorist incidents.
It's one of the most unequal treaties of its kind anywhere in the world.
I completely agree. And India's abeyance of this treaty continues to, raise alarm in Pakistan. Tell me about what's happening over there.
It's very interesting, Deepak. I was just looking at this whole thing, and to my mind, what has actually happened is that Op Sindoor is a landmark event in the subcontinent, right? geopolitically, several years down the line, you look back at Op Sindoor, May 2025, what India did really was to call out Pakistan's sponsorship of state terror and the use of nuclear weapons to protect states' sponsorship of terror, its addiction to terrorism as an instrument of state policy. All of these were called out. That very significant speech that Prime Minister Modi made on the 12th of May finally ended this entire charade that Pakistan had been carrying out for 4 decades. This whole business of state and non-state actors, talks and terror,
Right.
attacks will go on, but talks must continue. And today, you're looking at Pakistan that's hit a dead end. Not only has its entire bogey being called out, this entire thing of, we will continue to attack you, kill your civilians in, Pahalgam and all of those places, but you will not have the right to retaliate. Well, we retaliated during Op Sindoor. We smashed their bases, we brought down their aircraft. And now Pakistan is in search of a new formula. And that formula happens to be the Indus Waters Treaty.
Right.
They're looking at a new casus belli for them to promote terrorism, to launch attacks against targets in India, to say that, look, because you're so-called holding back the Indus Water Treaty, the river waters that were promised to us under the IWT. This is nonsense. We haven't stopped even a drop of water from going into Pakistan.
That's really important because so far, the only thing that India has done is that A, it's stated that we no longer agree to the treaty,
Yeah.
and B, that we've refused to share hydrological data.
That's all. We have not stopped any water from going into Pakistan. In fact, what the kind of propaganda that Pakistan is spreading is about the fact that we are building up dams and reservoirs to store our share of the water, which has been promised to us by that very unequal treaty. 80% of the river water just goes into Pakistan.
And even out of the 20% that we are getting,
Yes.
they're not allowing us to actually harness the full potential of it.
Exactly. And which is what the government of the day has now started doing. But no water has stopped. And the reason, Deepak, is that Pakistan is trying to divert attention from its own water mismanagement inside of Pakistan. Now, they are one of the world's most water-stressed countries, right? They have a reservoir storage capacity of something like between 30 and 60 days, which is half of what the World Bank mandates.
Right.
Something like 120 or 140, I recall, is what is mandated globally. You have countries like Egypt that go all the way up to 1,000, right?
Yeah.
We are about 170. We are about in the hundreds, in 170. I'm trying to remember the exact figure, but we are water stressed, but we're not as bad off as Pakistan, because guess what? The Pakistanis have not invested in water management. They've not created reservoirs. They've not built dams to store water over there. All of the water that they get is either it's used in wasteful agricultural practice. 90% of their agriculture is flood irrigation. They just flood fields.
And growing crops that are extremely thirsty, like sugarcane and cotton.
and rice and cotton.
Yeah,
So
which are incidentally, the industries where the Pakistan army holds for.
Absolutely. And guess where they're diverting the money that should have gone into water management to build those dams, reservoirs, build water management infrastructure. All of that money is being diverted by the Pakistan army. And today they found this very convenient bogey of India is put the IWT in abeyance, and therefore we are, we've got a reason to use terrorism as an instrument of state policy. This is exactly the propaganda line that they're pushing and peddling.
But beyond that, Sandeep, Bilawal Bhutto has talked about the apocalyptical solution, right? And of course, there's a lot of conversation in Pakistani strategic circles, about their fantasies of bombing the infrastructure that India does.
Yeah, they're fantasies, because Deepak, if they tried doing that, Operation Sindoor is still on, right? We don't even have to announce a new operation. Jets will go across, missiles will go across, and they will do what they have to do. And it's important to call this out, because this is pure propaganda. The fact that India is diverting any waters, we have not done anything. We've just said this is a very unequal treaty. We need to relook at it. We have not even done that. We've not scrapped the treaty. The treaty remains. All that we're not doing is we're not sharing water data with them, right? The water continues to flow. And since you've been talking about Bilawal Bhutto should worry about the Punjab-based Pakistan army diverting water away from his farmers in Sindh. And he's actually raised a shindig about it about, I think it was it 2024, when the Pak army came up with this huge plan to, divert
into the
waters of the
Cholistan
Indus
desert.
into the Cholistan desert for, irrigation. And that's when he put his foot down and he says, look, there'll be chaos in Sindh. And he, threatened blue murder. I'm not sure what happened there, but it's very clear that whatever you're seeing today in Pakistan, the problems of Pakistan are all internal. And it is the Pakistan army that's seeking to project all of these outside, to say that we have, hum to doodh ke dhule, and these guys outside are the ones who are causing all the problems.
Well, what else can you expect from the Pakistan army? On the same note, there have been talks about the alleged track 2 dialogue between India and Pakistan, and it's raised a lot of debate in India. A lot of angry noises have come out because, after decades of the Pakistanis sending over terrorists into India, no part of India has been spared from the scourge of terrorism.
Absolutely.
And yet, there are these fantasies of a track 2 dialogue somehow, solving the problems between India and Pakistan.
This entire track 2 thing, Deepak, or the track 1.5 or the track 2, was hijacked by the Pakistan army a couple of years back, and it was very clearly known, and it's been very well known by the government, which is why you had the Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri coming out very categorically and saying we attach no importance to track 2. They don't influence policy. So the whole thing fell flat on its face. But the fact is that for the last couple of years, like I mentioned, the Pak army has hijacked this entire narrative of track 2. And they're trying to peddle their own agenda points over there. Right? They don't want to talk about terrorism. They want to talk about everything else, like Indus Waters Treaty and all, for instance. So for them, it's become a convenient thing of floating their trial balloons and all that. And I think it does not make sense for us to talk to Pakistan till the time they abjure the use of terrorism as an instrument of state policy.
But at the same time, we've seen this letter by the 100 or so people who've called for dialogue.
I didn't see these 100 or so people write letters when civilians were being butchered in Mumbai and in Delhi and in Pahalgam. They only seem to jump up when there's when the talks are held in abeyance. So if I could use that word, and the fact that state sponsorship of terror is never called out by Pakistan. It's always the fact that India is being portrayed as the aggressor here, because all that we've been asking from 2019 on is that we need to see an end to this infrastructure terror in Pakistan. We need to see the Pakistan state take credible steps to dismantle this infrastructure of terrorism, without which you can't have talks with Pakistan, because otherwise the same cycle continues. Terror attacks, talks, terror attacks, talks.
But Sandeep, the people and this whole ecosystem, the track 2 dialogue, society as it were, they all feed upon attention from the West. How far do you think the West is complicit in it, particularly Western media?
Well, I think it's a thriving industry. You have think tanks, you have organizations that make a lot of money out of this. At the end of the day, Deepak, it's a livelihood, right? There are jobs involved, there are people involved, there are perks involved, there's foreign travel involved for all of these. And many of them are being funded by foreign countries and think tanks abroad. So it's an ecosystem, it's an industry.
Well, difficult times indeed. Speaking of difficult times, the Durand Line. Now, fighting's erupted on the Durand Line again. Do you see a possibility of things ever being sorted? I mean, not other borders with Pakistan have not.
Well, I should ask you, Deepak, because you just did that very fine interview with Mr. Hashimi in Kabul when that attack took place. But give us your take on this whole thing, on the violence. I mean, I'm a bystander, but you've been following this far closely than I have been.
I've been speaking to a few people in Kabul on and off, and every time some incident like this happens, part of me also feels sorry because we reach out to them in moments of tragedy. Right. But that's the nature of the news industry as it is. And there was a range of emotions there. To begin with, the most liberal of the Afghans will say that, we don't support the extremist side of the Taliban. But insofar as Pakistan is concerned, we stand united with the regime in Kabul. And what they see is this unilateral, or rather this obsession of Pakistan with finding that strategic depth in Afghanistan.
That fantasy continues.
They resent the 50 years of unnecessary war that was pushed forth and rather cultivated by external factors in Afghanistan.
That's interesting you should say that, Deepak, because, I was looking at parallels with Iran, that the regime is not the most popular among the people in Iran, right? It's been pretty repressive. It's cracked down on citizens, protesters, all of that, brutally at times. But when you have an external threat that manifests itself, as it has in the case of the Pakistan military for the people of Afghanistan, I think they tend to rally around the government of the day or the regime of the day, irrespective of how unpopular they are.
Yeah. Another thing that's been happening over there is that the attacks on the civilians. Now, the Pakistani army, this was very interesting what happened. The latest round of fighting erupted after an attack in Karachi on an office, the headquarters of the Rangers.
Rangers, yeah.
Right. And there was this truck or a car laden with explosives rammed into the gate, and there was another party of militants who rushed in a bid to kill the officers over there.
Right.
Now, this was, the responsibility was claimed by the Jamaat-ul-Ahrar, which is one of the factions of the TTP.
Breakaway TTP faction.
Right. Now, within 12 hours, the Pakistani army claimed to have identified who those precise, who were the militants that ordered it.
Right.
Their hideouts, conveniently in Afghanistan.
And they carried out strikes.
And they carried out the strikes.
Right.
This at a time when, they're unable to locate people like Masood Azhar.
Yes.
Bilawal Bhutto thought he was in Afghanistan of all places. So now the Afghans, including the analyst Ubaidullah Bahir, he's pointed this out. And this is the refrain in Afghanistan, that Pakistan has been trying to externalize its problems, like it has done. Every time there is something happening inside Pakistan, there is a bid to create an enemy. Furthermore, there's one more trend that must be noted. See, what Pakistan sees, earlier the eastern border was the militarized one, while western was this open Wild West for Pakistan, where the ISI, just ran amok. But now what's happening is that Pakistan sees that India is more preoccupied with its eastern border, that is with China.
Right, northern border, as you call it.
The northern border with China. What Pakistan is doing is, and it sees that the war, the forever war with Afghanistan is not going to end, because the Afghans will not lay down arms. They are the sort of people who will bend knees, no matter if it's a 20-year occupation, as we've seen.
Yeah. What a tragedy, Deepak. I know the country has not seen any peace. It's going to be half a century of non-stop fighting, I think.
Entire generations that have seen nothing but war. People have been born and died.
2 generations, 3 generations.
Born and died, and entire lifetimes in the shadow of war. They've not seen what peace means.
Yes.
Right. So the Afghans are not going to lay down arms. What the Pakistanis are doing is that they are slowly and steadily building military infrastructure on the western border.
Right.
It is my understanding that they will keep a semblance of, strength on their eastern border in a bid to deter India.
Right.
And there will be some small attacks, because they won't let the terrorism, the whole campaign that they've been running in Kashmir die down. So pinpricks will keep happening, so to keep the so-called movement alive. And it is my understanding that what they're doing is they also want, as Asim Munir had stated, that it will come from the east.
Right.
Right. So I think what they're looking at is that they will, attempt to use the Bangladeshis as the proxy.
Right.
So this is one of the in my conversations with people in Afghanistan, these are some of the things that come out routinely. Right. And again, much like everything to do with Pakistan, the problem just does not seem to be solvable. Or rather, there are vested interests in carrying it on. So that's all we have for you today. We'll be here watching all the things that are happening in the subcontinent and the wider world. Until then, until we see you the next time, stay tuned to Chakra News.